All right. Thank you guys for joining me today. So, before I dive into it all, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. If at any point I don't respond to your comments, it's because I'm waiting till the very end to pay attention to chat. I've got a lot of bullet points here that I want to talk about, and I am going to try and keep my train of thought on all of it. This is unrehearsed. This is me kind of sitting back and observing for the most part the last week or so, 2 weeks, and so I'm going to go over kind of the history of this OGL situation because I think it sheds light on everything. So I'm starting all the way at the beginning of the original OGL a little bit, but I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Wizards of the Coast and how the community is the reason they are thriving, and I want to talk about some of the new systems and licenses and stuff that are being worked on and possibly popping up. And then I will end this by talking about some of my actual opinions and takes on those things, as well as what's going to happen with the channel here, with our streams and all of that. And then I will look at chat and, we will go through the comments you guys have left. And periodically I will remind anyone tuning in late, if they missed any of the history or anything, they can go and check out this when it's a VOD, video on demand, so they can get up to date. So the first thing I want to cover is all the way back to TSR. In 1997, TSR was not doing well with Dungeons and Dragons. My understanding is they were on the brink of bankruptcy and just folding completely. In this, they obviously sold the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property over to Wizards of the Coast, which at that time I believe Wizards of the Coast was only working on Magic the Gathering. A very small company at that time. Wizards of the Coast then proceeded to start a new edition. They started working on 3.0. Within a couple years before 3.0 was released, Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast. In this time, a lot of the marketing around 3.0, from my memory, was that third-party publishers, people in the community, would be able to release their own content compatible with Dungeons & Dragons 3.0. This was going to be done with the original Open Gaming license. Now, a lot of people know that most games used to cover their butts extremely well with not letting people put stuff on web pages, sending cease and desist letters if you posted fan-made content on web pages and stuff in the early days of the internet. The OGL allowed you to do these things and put them out there for the world and possibly to make a couple dollars off of it as well, which was huge. Now, Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition was released in 2000, and at Gen Con 2000, a couple publishers were working on their own things. One of them was Green Ronin Publishing and Chris Pramus. He released Death in Freeport. And Atlas Games released 3 Days to Kill on the same day that the Player's Handbook for 3rd edition was released. This helped Dungeons & Dragons get out of the rut that they had been in for so long. The thing... Later on, the 3rd edition grew in popularity. A bunch of publishers were releasing a ton of content for it. I mean, we had Mutants and Masterminds pop up in that time. We had all sorts of other games that, again, the community flourished around. Again, huge success, I think, because of all of this. Later on, after all this had went on for a while, Dungeons & Dragons announced a 4th edition. And they decided they were not going to use the Open Gaming license anymore. They were going to be switching over to the GSL, which was a lot tighter and restricted people from releasing content for them. I don't know the terms of the GSL. I was never into 4th edition, so I can't really comment on that too much, but I do know there was a huge drop-off in sales, and I do know that Pathfinder from Paizo was released due to this. Pathfinder, for a while, was the #1 RPG in our industry because of this epic failure by Wizards of the Coast. Later on, while some people were still releasing things under the original Open Gaming license, Dungeons & Dragons announced a playtest for 5th edition. They were calling it D&D Next. And it was brilliant. The community came back. People were like, is this going to be better than 4th edition? Is this going to be like 3rd edition? Everybody had an opinion. And everybody was able to offer feedback. So Wizards of the Coast leaned heavily on the community. They'd release updates to this test, and people would go and play it in their gaming stores for Adventurers League and things like that. And after time, a lot of people were invested and bought into this, and were like, okay, I love the playtest, love where this is going. And then 5th edition was released to great success again. And the community felt like they were part of it. Now, when 5th edition was released, they were not under the Open Gaming license. However, they were working with third-party publishers. In fact, Kobold Press, I believe, wrote Hoard of the Dragon Queen. I believe Green Ronin helped work on Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. So they were working with third-party publishers who had proven to have experience with the Dungeons & Dragons property over the years, and with the lore and all of that. So 5th edition starts growing. Obviously, you get things like Critical Role, stuff like that. Other content creators start creating a ton of content. We shifted our focus and started creating a ton of content for 5th edition. All back in about 2014 and 15. As time goes on, you've got the announcement of 1D&D for the 50th anniversary and things like that. And people are like, oh, okay, is this going to be a 6th edition? And, you know, all of that. They start releasing playtests for that. And throughout the process of 5e, they release continual playtests, you know, making people feel like they're offering, you know, feedback and being part of this project, getting a preview of what might be in future books. In late 2022, the community on Twitter and YouTube and all of that starts asking Wizards of the Coast if 1D&D is going to be under the Open Gaming license. At this point, it's kind of announced that it's going to be its own edition, but at the same time, it's going to be all-encompassing and a forever adaptable, and it'll be the only edition they'll ever need to release again. So again, people want the OGL because they want to release their stuff, you know, things like that, and it's a win-win situation, right? They announced they will have an OGL. Details to come later. So, here we are, January 2023. Content creators and publishers are served an NDA for the OGL 1.1. This is not for feedback, according to these people, supposedly. And they have to sign a contract that is a sweetheart deal, better than the OGL royalty rates as far as I've heard. I don't know if that's true. I have not confirmed that. Someone else can probably confirm that for me. But it was supposed to go live January 13th. Our online community with third-party publishers, with bloggers, streamers, content creators, people across the board start talking about it on Twitter and how upset they are. Start making YouTube videos. I believe over 10 million views on YouTube alone. And now, who knows, maybe it's more like 12 or 13 million. But over 10 million views on YouTube alone across the platform about how much the OGL 1.1 is a disaster. Talking about the very issues with the OGL. Things like Wizards of the Coast can change terms at any time with a 30-day notice. So that means these next few things could get worse, maybe get better, doubtful, but could get worse. The OGL 1.0 would be deauthorized, meaning you can no longer create content for the original Open Gaming license, the one that everyone's been using under 5e. Tal'Dorei, Paizo, Mutants and Masterminds, for Green Ronin, like so many games. I'm not going to try to list all of them, but there are a ton of games, a lot of which don't use a single mechanic from Dungeons & Dragons. and they use it so that other people can create content for their games. Everything published under the new OGL must be reported to Wizards of the Coast, including sales. Wizards of the Coast will get the right to republish works under OGL 1.1 without giving credit to the original creators and without royalties paid to those original creators in perpetuity, which basically means forever. And that could be a game that you've wrote under the original OGL that doesn't use Dungeons & Dragons rules, that maybe you do a Kickstarter and make $500,000, and you have to report that to Wizards of the Coast. And they can then turn around and say, wow, that did really well. Maybe with our marketing and just our branding on it, maybe we could sell it for a lot more. Let's take that and republish it. Any company would have to pay 25% royalties if they gross more than $750,000 a year. Now, I know you're saying that's a large number. How many companies really in our space make that much? Again, I want to point out the first point I made. Wizards of the Coast can change terms at any time with a 30-day notice. I have friends who have done Kickstarters and have made $250,000. I have friends who have made $50,000. If at the end of the year Hasbro can't pitch to their investors that they've made a certain number and they only need $2 million, they can look at the data you have reported and given to them, and they can change that number so that you have to pay that difference so that they can keep their investors happy. Will they do that? I don't know, but they could. And we all know how large corporations think. They don't care who they have to step on in order to get their money, in order to keep their bosses happy. So, with all of this, the industry, well, but even before that, I want to point out some things. In 2021, Wizards of the Coast sold more than $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. 950 million of that was the tabletop gaming space. 950 million. So they're not in a position like TSR was in 97. They're not hurting. They're making a ton of money. This is a thriving business. It feels like it's growing. And honestly, if they made one D&D in good faith with the community, there's no reason it couldn't continue to grow. And the whole industry would thrive off of that. It's a win-win situation. So, with all that, the industry, though, has started adapting at a rapid pace. I've never seen so many people jump on and rally together. Some groups that wouldn't normally rally together behind all the smaller third-party companies and things like that. I've heard of all sorts of new games that I had never heard of before, and I am somebody, which you can kind of tell on my bookshelf, I am somebody who is open to trying new games. In fact, last night I had 3 brand new games mentioned to me. One of them I had heard of, the others I had not. And I'm going to look into them. I'm going to check them out. But I love that. Now, Kobold Press, I think, was the first one to announce Black Flag. My understanding is Black Flag is going to be a new game system that also is going to have an open license. That way they can produce Midgard and all their other content for this system. Paizo announced the ORC, also known as Orc, which I think is an amazing name. And a lot of people are rallying around that. A lot of people remember how Paizo rose from the ashes of 4th edition and 3.5 to kind of take over the industry for a little bit. And so a lot of people have already jumped to orc. I've seen people making massive amounts of purchases. I saw someone who bought like 20 books yesterday or 2 days ago of all Pathfinder, second edition. I want to mention Mechanical Muse head Mark Tassin, who has announced he's going to be working on CNGH, which stands for Cool Name Goes Here RPG. I refer to it as Cool Name RPG. The group on Facebook is called Cool Name RPG. The website, all these websites are down below, by the way, for those three. But Cool Name RPG has a write-up on their website that explains what their goals are. Mark Tassin will not be taking any pay on that. And it's going to be a completely open license or open game for the community. And with input from the community, he's already started taking input. He's done a bunch of live streams, really good stuff. So I want to encourage you to check that one out because I'm paying a lot of attention to that. And they've got a couple consultants within the industry, Steve Long, who worked on Hero, among other things. So I expect a lot of cool things there. Those are the three I am confident will be released. I don't believe Paizo's ORC is going to be a new system. I think it might just be licensing, and they will probably make changes to second edition that remove certain things that would be not okay to use without the OGL 1.0. Things like magic missile and stuff like that. And then Matt Colville is working on something, and a couple other content creators I know of have announced they're going to do stuff. And it's too early to like assume what those are going to be, so I don't want to get into too much depth with those. Now, to me, the OGL, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, I thought it was great for years. I think it was a means to allow all of us to be involved in ways that you probably couldn't do in other situations. I think they have benefited based on the history that I mentioned at the beginning. And again, if you didn't see the beginning, please watch the video on demand and watch the beginning. I think the history going back to 97 of the OGL, why and how it was used to get the community to buy in, is very important to this. I think they've directly benefited from people being able to put out content, especially early on in new editions. And they continue to use the community with playtesting, which again benefits them. It benefits us, though, as the end user. And I think all companies should do this because I think it gives you a small sense that this is also yours, right? A sense of ownership, even though it's not really yours. And I think that's fine. I think that's good, and it creates brand loyalty. And I think that's why there's such an outrage right now, because people have been invested in this. I've been invested in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since the playtest. I played it at my game store. That's where I was like, wow, I really like Dungeons & Dragons. And I am somebody who did not start in this hobby with Dungeons & Dragons. I didn't get into Dungeons & Dragons until I had been playing other games for 13 or 14 years at that point. And the playtest, as well as my wife's influence running older D&D for me, really made me buy in. But the playtest is when I made that shift where I was like, okay, yes, this is awesome. For a few years before the playtest, I was playing AD&D with my wife, played a little bit with her brother, and all of that. But yeah, so I'm a little irritated. I'm not as angry as most people. I don't know how this comes across to you guys. I'm not as angry as other people. This is not something that I feel like we can't rebound from. Again, I started with other systems. I don't mind trying other systems. But I do want to say, I don't think any of us, even the ones who are extremely mad, should be mad at any employees at Wizards of the Coast. I don't think really any of them knew what was going on. Now, the people at the top probably knew a lot about what was going on. The people at Hasbro definitely knew what was going on. I've worked in companies where people at the top are saying, this has to be done. And I've been in a position in mid-level management where you have to do something you don't agree with, but it's food on the table for your family. The other thing to remember, a lot of these people, this was a dream job for them, to work at Wizards of the Coast, inside the tabletop RPG industry. And now some people are telling them, well, if you don't support this, go quit your job. And I don't think that's reasonable, to just quit your job because, I get it if something's extremely unethical and they're hurting people. And I know they are financially hurting people, but I don't think it would help to have them quit their jobs. Maybe strike, whatever, I don't know. But I am not going to tell somebody else what to do with their financial livelihood on the line. Again, I love what the community is doing with releasing their own systems. I think more systems, the better, and the really good ones will rise to the top. If you're a small company who doesn't know what to do right now, and maybe you're worried you don't have the name recognition like a Paizo or whatever, I want to encourage you to jump on to one of these others and either start creating stuff for one of those and reach out to them. I bet you Kobold Press would love to hear from, another company that's released third-party content. I bet, in fact, I know Cool Name RPG would love to have third-party publishers jump onto that. So if you are interested, jump onto these things. There's a huge opportunity this year. And right now, the whole community is behind this movement. If you're a content creator, do what you want to do. It's your choice. If you're a streamer, content creator, blogger, whatever, do what you're going to do. I mean, again, I see the community doesn't want people to release content for Dungeons and Dragons. I've heard people say, oh, boycott streams for Dungeons and Dragons. Again, as a consumer, as a viewer, as a fan of these things, do what you want. Who am I to tell you how to spend your time? But I can tell you streamers, content creators, third-party publishers are in a tough situation right now. If they release something for Dungeons and Dragons, there's a chance of backlash. Whether that's videos that talk about one D&D moving forward, whether it's people continuing to stream their campaigns of D&D 5th edition. I've been reflecting on this for a few days. My original idea was I should just stop streaming our D&D 5e games, maybe just take them offline. And I could do that. That's not going to help my channel. I know it's not going to help others' channels. I also could adapt our campaigns over to new systems. Now, in my situation, that doesn't help. I run Tyranny of Dragons and Descent into Avernus on this channel. We've been running Descent into Avernus since right before COVID. So you're talking 3 years. Tyranny of Dragons, same thing. It was almost that long. My patron's game is D&D 5e. That also, they're paying me to run 5e. Now, I'm sure they won't mind if I change, and I would talk to them about what system, but the point is we stream these things for people to watch, and our income with the streams comes from that. I don't make a lot of money off of this. This is something that goes into me investing in the channel. It goes into me investing in this hobby. So, I'm not getting rich off of it. Not everybody's Matt Mercer in Critical Role. Most people are not. I have a lot of friends in this space who've gone full time in the last couple years doing Dungeons and Dragons content, and this could ruin them. I do not plan after these next few streams of Tyranny of Dragons, Descent to Avernus, my patron's game, to stream any Dungeons and Dragons games. That's my choice. I'm making it for myself. Again, watch it if you like it. Don't watch it. That's okay. Please do not get upset with me or players in my game or other streamers for doing this, though. It's a tough decision to make. And I think the right one is to finish these campaigns. Now, I'm almost done with all of them, so that's the good news. When it comes to videos on my channel and other people's channels, I've seen mention that some people are going to continue making D&D videos. Of course. It is the biggest game in the space. It will continue to get the most views until other games get recognition. In the past, when I have done videos about other games, there have been times that they don't get the views because people go, oh, it's not D&D. It kills your momentum with YouTube, with the algorithm. And that, if you are somebody that makes just enough money to get by, you're doing it full time, that can be the difference of getting a paycheck from Google that month or from YouTube that month. And that could be the difference of a couple hundred, couple $1,000s, depending on how big these creators are. So I can see why they would still do D&D content. Should we put a warning at the beginning or a statement at the beginning of these videos? I don't know yet. If you've got ideas and suggestions, I would love to hear it. Please let me know, whether it's here in the comments, whether it's on my Discord or on Twitter. What do you think content creators should do in that regard? So I might do D&D videos moving forward. I don't know. I have always been a variety channel. I've talked about Paizo and Pathfinder 1st edition, 2nd edition. I've done Palladium Books videos. I've done Fantasy Age, Blue Rose RPG. In fact, I want to talk about some of the games I've streamed, and I might forget some, and if I have, I'm sorry. But non-D&D games I've done are Blue Rose. We had an amazing campaign. It was a very short one. I really enjoyed it. If you were into Blue Rose by Green Runine, check it out. We actually had Joseph Carricker, who is a employee of Green Runine and worked on Blue Rose in the game as a player, and that was a lot of fun. It was awesome getting his input behind the scenes and being able to ask him questions about the setting and stuff behind the scenes. So again, go check out that game on our channel. We've done Monster of the Week on this channel. We've done Palladium Books, Heroes Unlimited, Riffs. We've done Fantasy Age, Dragon Age by Green Runine. I'm a big fan of Green Runine, so I have to put that out there. But Fantasy Age, Dragon Age. We've reviewed a whole slew of other games. We've run Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. We've done Pulp Cthulhu. We did Octung Cthulhu. We've done reviews on the Fallout RPG. All sorts of things. Star Trek the RPG. And I love learning about new game systems and all of that. And I'm going to continue to do stuff like that. And I'm excited that I get to do things like that. I understand learning new systems can be very hard for people. The time it takes, completely understand that. And I'm going to do videos about how do you get into a new system that you don't know. So that'll all happen here. So that's kind of my take on it. If you haven't saw the beginning, I think the history is really important to understand of the OGL. That's why I started with that. So please watch the beginning of this for that, because I think it tells you why people are so mad in this space when it comes to this. I think it opens your eyes as to how Wizards of the Coast use the community to grow their brand. So let me look at these comments. I'm going to start at the very beginning, and I will respond to some of them. So Tim D, I heard Hasbro is having second thoughts now. Won't do much for the trust issue, though. I think this could be quite healthy with new stuff coming out to the hobby. Yes. So I saw their statement. Based on what I know, I didn't think it sounded good. It sounded like a PR person was told to write this up. They even used their funny little, terminology in there to make it like a ha-ha, we were just joking kind of thing. It was not a serious statement. The tone of it was not serious. And I don't expect them to dial it back enough. And even if they did at this point, they've shown their hand. they are going to try and squeeze the money out of you at some point. And as the other thing I didn't mention, as somebody who's had a channel since 2012, with how YouTube is, I don't trust that if I do future D&D content down the line, that if Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast start saying, oh, if they're not reporting to us, we want all these things taken down. So here's protected channels or whatever. And anything that's not on this protected list needs a violation. YouTube, you're dealing with bots. It's so hard to deal with a person to dispute any copyright claims or DACA violations. So as a content creator, I think all of us need to think about that and protect ourselves in the future from a big corporation, you know, coming in and just saying, I don't want people releasing competing content with our streaming services over on Twitch. So make sure these YouTube channels and other Twitch channels get taken down or whatever. So I don't want to risk that. Peter Rune, what's the stream for? Has something happened in the TTRPG community this week? So I am somebody who does not like to do a lot of videos on the trending things going on in the community. I pay attention a little bit, but I don't usually dive into it. And even this, I was kind of sitting back and evaluating what I was going to do, what I wanted to do. I've been talking to my gaming groups about it for a couple days. We had a conversation last night with our home group even. You know, so I do think personally I'm going to play D&D outside of streaming and stuff, but I'm not going to try and promote as of right now. I am not, and I say as of right now because I don't know what the future holds. But I'm not going to be doing that kind of stuff and risking my channel. And I don't want to support a big corporation that I think is trying to squeeze out money of everybody. You know, I don't want to be held upside down and shaken as every penny falls out of my pocket, you know. I understand businesses have to make money. I don't mind, you know, when people, the funny thing is people will be like, oh, it's a money grab and stuff like that. I don't mind people releasing a lot of products or whatever. Usually when people say it's a money grab, it's because they don't feel like spending money on a new product or a product they don't think is up to a certain quality. But, you know, I've been able to, with almost every, in fact, I would even say every single D&D 5e book that I've owned, I have been able to get value out of it. There isn't a single thing I bought for 5e that I didn't. So, yeah, we will play it in our home game. I don't think we're going to jump to 1D&D. If I want future 5e books, I will look within the community to buy secondhand. There's a lot of books I wanted to get, was planning on getting, because I just don't have them. If you're somebody who's wanting to burn your books, hey, you can send them to me. Just kidding. Don't worry about that. Mark says, technically we were first, but we're not really big enough for folks to notice. CoolNameRPG.com. Go check it out. I am sorry. I did not realize that. I saw Kobold Press first. So, and then I saw yours, Mark. So check that out, though. Cool Name RPG is going to be cool. There's no doubt about it. I like what they're doing over there. I like the conversations that have been had. So Cool Name RPG is a system that is going to be for the community. They're taking a lot of community feedback. Their vision is clear on their website. They want it to be adaptable, so if you want to make your own things for it, you can. Different genres, settings, whatever. But also, if you've created content before under the OGL, you should be able to convert it to this new system they are going to be working on. So definitely check that out. In Like Flynn, RPG and more, Matt Finch has made his announcement for Sword and Wizardry. Basic Fantasy Project will be making changes for 4E Basic Fantasy. Troll Lord Games as well. Mark said, nothing the creatives working at Wizards of the Coast can do other than make clear their opposition from the inside. Yep. No, that makes complete sense. I agree. And like Flynn says, there's always room to grow. I'll be looking forward what comes down the pipeline in the future, especially from Cool Name. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Flynn. I wanted to continue my Dungeon 23 content with the 5e version of the content I'm using. I'd feel weird now using it. Of course, my channel really is only a fledgling channel. Yeah, check out him. In Like Flynn, RPG and more. I was planning on doing Dungeon 23. I was going to do, once a week, I was going to do all my stuff, and I just didn't start because this year started off crazy. And we're just barely 2 weeks in. And yeah, so I haven't even started mine, unfortunately. I don't know if I'm going to pick up on it at this point just because of all the other stuff going on now. Thanks, and from Mark Tassin, thanks. And to be clear, my comment was about telling Wizards employees to quit. That won't help anything. Well said. I 100% agree. I don't think they should quit either. Again, collect your money, learn, pad your resume when you eventually one day they let you go or you move on or whatever. You now have a resume to go to another company and hopefully make a good living off of it. You could advertise non-D&D products during your D&D shows. Best plan I can think of. It's a crappy situation. Yes, so during my streams, I will already be shouting out other companies. I'll be doing all of that. So that is definitely my plan. Again, I have good relationships with Paizo. I do get review products from them. I have good relationships with Green Ronin. I have, I believe, the start of a good relationship with Palladium Books. I have stuff going on. So I do, again, want to encourage you guys to check out other systems. And I'm not going to just say, certain things because I have a good relationship with them. I'm going to be honest with anything I put on this channel. I always have been. If there has been a game in the past I've reviewed that I wasn't into myself, I look for the types of things that people would like about the system. I look for the types of people who would like those systems. And so I've encouraged people to try games if they liked X, Y, and Z. Being honest doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like, this game sucks. Because one person doesn't like it doesn't mean other people won't. And so I'm very open about talking about other games. I love it. And like Flynn says, I'm waiting for more Palladium Juice. I had fun playing with you guys. As did I. So I run Palladium Books very loose. It's not by the books. Again, I've streamed it. I like to call it Palladium Light. But I found that works for me, and I've been able to have a lot of fun. And other people have had a ton of fun. Even people who have played Palladium and not been too into it, I think they found that playing this way helps them. So I do love Paizo's flex to all this. So it is hilarious that Wizards of the Coast has not learned from their history. Hasbro has not learned from their history. 4th edition. Paizo shifted, adapted, and capitalized on an opportunity. And Pathfinder grew huge. There's video games for it now. It is, I think it's arguably the second biggest RPG in the space. I can at least say it's the second biggest from a fantasy RPG standpoint. So, yeah, I love it too. I think it's hilarious. DBJ, maybe suggest a better game system for the type of 5e theme you are using, like Call of Cthulhu or horror instead of 5e, or Fate or pulp action. Yes, I 100% agree. I think there are a lot of games out there that you can get your epic fantasy from. I think it's very easy to recreate that with games like Savage Worlds. Pathfinder, of course. So, yeah. Mark says, I still love D&D. I dislike the current stewards of the brand. I am with you fully, Mark. I think that's what's so hard. I had such a good time last night. We were playing Tomb of Annihilation in our home game, non-streamed. 5e is my favorite system right now. It's my favorite system to DM. It's so easy for me to run. I enjoy playing it. And so it sucks that they're doing this. I'm really frustrated about it. I'm not as mad as other people. I'm not somebody who, luckily my family is not that dependent on the channel income. In fact, I would say it's not dependent really at all on my income with this. So I'm not scared of losing it all. And I know there are people that create games in this space that are probably going through a ton of stress right now. You know, it's a hard time out there with jobs and things like that. So I 100% get it. How to RPG, formerly known as How to D&D, by the way. Awesome. Go check out his channel. We've done some DM roundtables. He says, hi, Juice. I am doing Dungeon 23. So he has done some pretty good D&D videos over the years. He does this DM's Roundtable that he orchestrates with other creators, sometimes upwards of 6 of your favorite content creators. I've been on a few of them. In fact, I just released one this past week that we had recorded back in September, I think, or October. This next week, I have our final one that I was part of that I have recorded. And it is actually, it's funny, it is actually about RPGs other than D&D to try. So I'm actually going to record something for the start of that and then play that out through the rest. But everybody says a couple RPGs. And again, there's some great games that I had never heard of that I think you guys should check out. So that'll be up Friday at 3 p.m. So a few days from now. If you're watching the video on demand, check for that. This is being done January 15th. So like 4 or 5 days from now. 5 days from now. I think the 20th is when it'll be up. So check out that video. But go check out How to RPG. He's a wonderful content creator from the other side of the world, New Zealand, I believe. So awesome creator. But yeah, I think that's all the comments. I've pretty much said my piece on it. I'm going to focus on making content about other games I enjoy. I think for now, my go-to fantasy RPG is either going to be Pathfinder. The issue I have with Pathfinder is I don't like to DM it as much. Second edition Pathfinder is not my cup of tea for that. However, I do love the system. I do love character creation, and I like playing it. So I am putting that out there. It might be one of my favorite games to be a player in. I like the stuff you can come up with conceptually with characters, and all of that. And I don't mind running it. It's just not my favorite to run, I should say. I really like Fantasy Age. Fantasy Age is a very simple game to play. It's a 3d6 system. Dragon Age is the same game with a couple attribute changes and maybe a couple other things. And it also has... Dragon Age has some of the things incorporated from the video games that I think are really, really good. With the 4th Dragon Age video game coming out, you might see me doing more with Dragon Age on this channel. I will do a formal review of Fantasy Age and Dragon Age soon. I promise you guys that. I've been meaning to do it. We'll also do some stuff about Modern Age, which is the same system, but with some sci-fi themes if you want, superheroes, all sorts of things you can put into that. And Green Ronin has a bunch of third-party content out there as well that you can also check out. Theirs isn't completely open, I believe. I think you do have to pay a little bit, but it's all done through like a website. I don't know the full details on it. Go check out Green Ronin. They are awesome. And the other thing is I'm looking for a little bit of diversity as well in whether it's my streamed games, whether it's systems I want to support. I know Green Ronin is a strong supporter of the LGBTQ community. As someone who has family, multiple family members that are part of that, that is an important thing for me. So I do want to put that out there. But Green Ronin's a strong supporter of that. Paizo in years past has had LGBTQ employees working on their lines. If there are other minorities, people of color, if there's disabled people in the community, point them out to me. I do want to check them out. And if I like what they're working on, I want to support it. So yeah. How to RPG, are you going to come back to the GM Roundtable discussions when I have the guts to do it again? So I want to. Right now, I'm actually taking a break from my streams. I think we're planning on returning in March. It might be April, though, that I'm getting back to it. So my game room right here is, I'm running a garage heater to heat this. This is a room off of my garage. I live in Michigan. Normally in January and February, we can see temperatures around like 10 degrees, which is cold. So, yeah. So right now, I'm trying to plan for April because I don't want to cancel a game because I have to be out here in a winter coat and gloves or even a discussion. So that's why I'm taking that break as well. But actually, I feel really good. I feel better now than I felt in months. I know part of it was I was suffering burnout last year. I had really bad burnout from creating content and stuff. I when COVID started through 2021, I was doing upwards of 7 or 8 streams or whatever a week, whether it was miniature painting, running games, things like that. So I burnt myself out, creating videos, doing reviews, all that stuff. And this past year, I really felt it. I was sick for 7 or 8 months out of the year. I had bronchitis, pneumonia, how to RPG, Fred. There were times where I was on there and I'm like coughing up a storm and had to mute my microphone the whole time and wolf down cough drops every 2 minutes just to not cough as much. So yes, I would love to come back. I've done streams before. I used to do interviews with guests like Mark, Sean Robertson from Palladium, people from Frog God Games, Necromancer Games. I've talked to people like Green Ronin, like Crystal Fraser, Joseph Carricker, Steve Kenson. I did stuff with people at Paizo. So I've had a lot of people on the channel. I think I'm going to get back to more stuff like that. But I'm going to go back to the format I had before, where it was less of an interview and more of having topics to discuss, like podcast format, and having guests on to discuss these things with their perspectives. So I already have a name for it. It's called the Tabletop RPG Power Hour. And that's because I want to stick to around an hour, talking about whatever's going on. It'll be pre-recorded. It won't be live, so it won't even be a stream necessarily. But I think that would be fun. I don't want to get sick. So right now I've got a space heater on as well behind me. Actually, you can't see it, but yeah. DBJ. I wonder how many will engage with 1D&D surveys going forward or sabotage it with owners. Yeah. I haven't been following the playtest this time. So I don't know. I still feel like in the grand scheme of things, right? They made $950 million in 2021 off of just the tabletop RPGs. I mean, I still think they're going to make a big portion of that from sales. There's a lot of casual people out there who don't follow our content, who don't follow what's going on with an OGL. So they'll still make hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't care what people do with the surveys. Wizards of the Coast made their bed. They can lie in it at this point. I would encourage you guys not to sabotage it because you're talking about game designers on the other side who are not to blame. I still think we should hope people make the best games possible, including them, because you never know who it's going to inspire. Most people get their initial introduction to this hobby through that game. And you don't know what teen kid is going to start playing Dungeons and Dragons and later be one of us, be a person who creates games for Pathfinder or for Paizo or Green Ronin or any of these other companies, or starts their own. So I would like to see people do the right thing, I think, and still be honest about it. I wonder more which content creators are still going to cover it. And I think there's some channels that, are more like news, like D&D news. Like I would look at Nerd Immersion and stuff like that. And I'm curious, because he's made a strong stance against Wizards of the Coast, but is he still going to profit off of it? That's his choice. I will probably watch his videos because I am still going to be curious about what's going on. But I'm not going to pay my money to Wizards of the Coast, I think, moving forward, for the time being. How to RPG says, I will fill out the survey, but I will be very honest. That's what I'm saying. I think that's the right thing to do. I have no intention of checking out the playtest, though. But maybe I should, because they're going to be free anyway, right? I still have my D&D Next playtest over here in a big old binder. Mark Tassin, chattering teeth make it hard to talk on the stream. Yeah, that is true. Mark, you're only an hour down the road, hour and a half down the road. I remember 10 degrees will get you sick again. So, yeah, again, I don't want to get sick. But if you guys are just tuning in, go check out the beginning. I don't know if I did a good job explaining the situation. I have not read the new OGL, but I described, I think, the history dating back to TSR, when Wizards of the Coast bought them, to Hasbro, the original OGL, how it was marketed with 3rd edition. I go into a little bit of detail with that, not a ton, but I talked about how the community helped Dungeons and Dragons get to where they are today, how they leaned on the community back then. They leaned on it again with 5th edition. So I want to encourage you guys to check out the VOD, because I think for some of you, it might open your eyes to why so many of us are upset and how it feels like we're just being cast aside for short-term gain. Because I think the OGL has been great and has been great for long-term. I think this new OGL would, in their eyes, been beneficial short-term. I don't think, from my perspective, that it would be beneficial long-term. And I say that because you have people who create content for D&D with their original OGL, who have proven they know how to design games without having to have a degree, without having to work for a company first. People demonstrate they can do this. And in turn, that gives people in these bigger companies an opportunity to say, oh yeah, they're good at this, they have good ideas, and they can then hire from that pool of people. And I think what they're doing is chopping themselves off at the legs. And so what they're doing is they're going to restrict the pool they can hire from easily for good employees. And that's not good for them either. So that's the weird part about all of this to me. They benefit directly from us streaming their games and creating content and stuff like that. And again, a lot of people in our space created stuff under the OGL that, again, they're cutting them off at the knees. So they're just hurting themselves. So, How to RPG, good night, Juice. All the best. Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. Mark says, the trouble with participating in the surveys is you're doing free work for a company that doesn't care about you or your hobby. Yeah, I agree. I could see that. Yeah, I mean, I would say don't do the surveys, thinking about it that way. Yeah, don't do the surveys at all. For sure. But why not download the content for free and keep it? I don't know. Maybe that's pointless. I don't play D&D next. I just have it on my shelf. But yeah, no, you're completely right. Because most companies pay for play testing. They pay for, or at least they give the product out for free and give people, the opportunity to create their own stuff for those products in advance. So yeah, you're right. It's definitely a thing to think about. So anyways, with that, I'm going to wrap it up there. I've been at it for almost an hour. This will probably be the format for the Tabletop RPG Power Hour that I plan on doing. I need to create overlays and stuff for that and line up guests. I have a few people willing to come on already. I'm sure I have people that I've talked to before that would be willing to come on. Soon, Mark, I would love to have you on as things start moving forward with Cool Name RPG. Would love to have you on to talk about that. And maybe some of the other people working on that. Might reach out to some people at Paizo, might reach out to some Kobold Press people eventually, but it'll be very little interview. Mostly it'll be about talking about topics. So maybe we would talk about the OGL and stuff like that. So I got to come up with a list of all the topics I would like to discuss. But thank you guys for watching. Again, check out the beginning of this, and we will see you guys next time. I'm Master of the Game. This is Juice. Wait, no. This is Master of the Game. I am Juice. Game on.